Hello and welcome to the AVForums podcast for Monday the 17th of June. And joining me on this edition, Steve Withers.
No, Elvis is not dead. He just went home.
Ed Selley.
You don't like it? You can kiss my furry little butt.
And Mark Botwright.
Make it a happy memory.
Well, welcome back to the podcast. And you'll be pleased to know that we're certainly around for the next few weeks until the next bank holiday. I don't think we have any more out-of-office trips planned. So yeah, we should be here for... Should be here for the next few weeks. Ed dropping his beers.
No, that was me dropping my phone.
Oh, was it?
No. I'm pre-opened and quite comparatively stealthy.
I hope you didn't smash it, Steve.
No, it's all right.
Good.
I'm just charging it.
Right, well, Mark's on the podcast. I've not heard from Mark in such a long time. You'll have made plenty of hats and all sorts by this moment in time, have you not?
No, it's largely been decorating, I'm afraid.
All right.
Which the new fixation. I like this.
No, more kind of house selling, and so therefore the immense joy of painting white ceilings a different shade of white. So, yes, all good fun, coupering on in fences, all that kind of thing. All fantastic, joyous things to do.
Yay!
The worst bit's getting high on the fumes, isn't it?
You can't even do that
really
anymore. They've got rid of some of the more exciting sort of cellulose.
Well, I don't know
anyway.
I don't know about that. This shop.
No.
underneath...
If you use bathroom paint, use the really good bathroom paint. Yes, believe me.
Fair enough. Okay, I shall bear that in mind.
Well, there's the shop down the stairs from me. It's been empty for a while. It was an estate agent's. It's now going to be Mr. Massage. So it's being sports massage and all the rest of it. So it's being gutted at the minute, and obviously they're decorating. And I've just been sitting here for the last few days, getting high as a kite on the fumes from the paint. And
sports massage. It's explicitly stating that, is it?
Yes. It says sports massage and all
With
that.
or without a happy ending.
Well, I was just going to say, hopefully the happy ending will be when they finish the painting and stuff and get on with it. You ruined my joke there, Steve. Thanks very much.
Get to the punchline quicker, Phil. You're taking too long.
You ruined his happy ending.
Comedy's all about timing, mate.
Well, that's good. I mean, obviously, if you are continuing to build up a range of sporting injuries, Phil, that means that you could... Or actually, ironically, you could actually now just fall down the stairs and receive immediate treatment.
I was telling my mum this, and she says, "Oh well, at least when you get a sore back carrying those TVs, you'll be all right." Up and down the stairs. So,
yeah, that could come in very handy if some massive 65 inch turns up and suddenly pull you back.
Yeah. Right, well, it's pointless me and Steve talking about what we've been up to, because we're going to talk about it in a minute. Ed, what have you been up to?
It's been Father's Day today on the day we've been recording. It's been very pleasant. I have both had my son and my father here, which has been a pleasant multi-generational thing.
Did you get a good haul?
I got a box of Maltesers. And a card written by I know exactly, and a card written by my son. He's really put some effort in. First of all, he's used lots of different colours, which is obviously important when you're 5, and I can read everything. So that's really good.
As someone who's given out boxes of Maltesers before, they should just rebrand them Afterthoughts. I'm sorry to break it to you.
What, with a garage on the way home?
Well, very possibly, but I stress that as my son is 5, he can't have purchased it. So it represents...
And your wife wasn't going to make much effort, was she?
Exactly. I'm perfectly content to receive a box of Maltesers, and this is not the time for any childish spats. It's been fine, and I didn't have him last night, so I got to sleep in my own bed and wake up sort of at a time of my own choosing. I say sort of at a time of my own choosing because it's another Santa Pod weekend, and something came past at about 7:30 this morning which sounded like an aircraft at 0 feet. So that was what woke me up. So that's fine. Otherwise, I've been testing lots of things, both for you guys and for other people. My front room is just it's just embarrassing at the moment. I mean, I say I have my parents over. My mum's going, do all of these boxes work at the same time? It's like, well, no, but unfortunately, there's a level of sort of parallel testing.
At least in my room, you can watch 2 TVs at once, but there's another 4 or 5 sitting on the floor that you can't.
Well, I only obviously have one television going, but there are 2 servers, 2 phono stages, 3 streamers. There's quite, and also I don't know. I put it on Twitter. I've got an absolutely perfect mystery box. I'm not doing it for AVForums, but it's a mains conditioning product. So we're off to a cracking start. It's enormous. It's made out of metal. It's extremely heavy. It's called a Nova 1, and it works on one product. It ticks every single box of man appeal hi-fi going, really. I mean, unless it also doubled as an actual weapon, I don't see how it could be made more appealing. So there's plenty of stuff here, and otherwise, no, it's been busy. I've spent some time arguing with solicitors because, you know, we all need to argue with a solicitor every now and again. Mr. Botwright's got that all to look forward to if he's about to start selling a house. So yeah, that's all good. Otherwise, just it is really. So
I was going to say I'll see you in 2 weeks at the pod, but I've had to cancel. So,
right.
but there will be. I think there's 150 Mustangs heading to the pod on the. I think it's the 29th. So
are they coming from the north though?
All over the country. It's Simply Mustangs UK.
Oh,
event,
so some of them will burble through my digs.
Yes,
the way
they will
up.
do. So something to look forward to. Right, I think we're all caught up. Competition time. We haven't heard his dulcet tones for a few weeks. So Mark, crack on.
Lots and lots of competitions at the moment. You can win a copy of Escape Room on Blu-ray, and that one runs to June 25th. And also closing on the same day, you can win a copy of Instant Family, also on Blu-ray. Day earlier, you can win a copy of Odette on Blu-ray and a copy of I Was Monty's Double, again on Blu-ray. We've also got copies of Criterion's June titles on Blu-ray. That's Dazed and Confused, The Heiress, and For All Mankind. That closes July 8th. And we've got a copy of Arctic on Blu-ray, runs till July 1st. A copy of Under Fire on Blu-ray, that runs till July 3rd. And you can also win a copy of Fox's Father's Day 4K bundle, and that one closes July 1st.
I couldn't be bothered to write all the separate things out. So if anybody's interested, it's on the homepage. Click competitions.
Presumably, the only person that's interested is the winner.
Yeah.
At this point, I got to say, Dazed and Confused and For All Mankind are excellent. So that's a good Criterion package for June. And obviously, For All Mankind is very appropriate considering it's almost the 5th anniversary of Apollo 11. So.
Yeah. So it's War for the Planet of the Apes, Assassin's Creed, and X-Men. The film collection is the Fox Father's Day bundle.
Splendid. I think that shows that fathers are held in quite low esteem in the Fox studios. But
I think Fox is held in very low esteem in the Fox studios.
Touche.
As Disney quietly winds it all down.
The That'll Do Day bundle.
Yeah.
Right, so some cracking competitions there for people to go and win. Lots of lots of Blu-rays and the 4K bundle there. Can't turn your nose up at 4K. Previous winners, Mark.
Yeah, John Smith won a copy of The Woman in the Window on Blu-ray and Systems. What?
John Smith, innit?
Oh, blast from the past, that is. Thank you. Systems Dead won copies of Criterion's May titles on Blu-ray as well.
So well done them.
Yeah.
Provided that, of course, the system isn't actually dead, and they might not know.
Yeah, excellent. Right, that's everything wrapped up there. We'll be back in a sec with some hardware news. Right, so we were invited to an 8K summit, which was held in New York last week, or this week. Well, it was last week.
It's a tough job, but someone's got to do it.
It is, yeah. It's not very often that we used to get lots of this type of thing, quite a number of years ago, where you would have a manufacturer-sponsored event and get invited along and taken along to these things, but they're getting quite rare these days, so it's always nice to get an invite. I'd never been to New York before, so it's always nice to go and visit someone new.
Does not disappoint, does it, Phil?
It does not disappoint. It lives up to it.
It looks just like you expect it to.
Yeah, and we had most of Wednesday to ourselves before we flew back, so we decided to go and do the tour. So Steve wanted to see where John Lennon was shot.
Yes, I went to the Dakota building to see the exact spot where John Lennon. I'm
just imagining you two like a scene from Midnight Cowboy.
It wasn't far off that by the end. We were shuffling along like Ratso Rizzo because we walked about 20 kilometres.
Yeah, it was about that.
I could barely move by Friday.
Yeah.
I'm doing an assassination tour of the US, basically. I've been to Dealey Plaza to see where JFK was killed, done Dakota building. So I need to do that. The motel where MLK was shot. Fortunately, I can't do where Robert Kennedy was killed because they've torn down the Ambassador Hotel in LA. But I've got to work out. I need to find out where Malcolm X was killed because I can go and see that one.
So anyway, we went and did that. We had a walk around. We went and seen the sites. In fact, we got quite a bit done. We did the Dakota building, Central Park, Empire State.
Empire State Building. Well, not Empire State Building as well. We did Grand Central Station.
Yeah.
We saw the Pan Am building. Oh, it's not called that anymore, but
Public
it's the famous
Library.
Pan Am building. Public Library, so a bit of a Ghostbusters thing there. We went down and saw the 9/11 Memorial, went around the museum there, saw Freedom Tower, Times Square, obviously, where we were staying. So yeah, we did a lot in one day.
Yeah, managed to cram it all in. But anyway, the reason we were there was the 8K Summit. It was sponsored by Samsung. It was Samsung that took us over, but it wasn't a Samsung event, so they just sponsored it. The actual talkers, the people that were there giving presentations, they were from all different areas of the AV business. Some creatives from Hollywood. There was Red, who make the Red digital cameras that a lot of the recent TV dramas and films and movies and stuff are filmed on. Yeah. There was Jeff from Nanosys, who are the people behind the Quantum Dots. They manufacture that stuff. And then there was a few professors and some other people from the industry, as well as a couple of journalists, who all gave presentations on what they think of 8K and where they think 8K is going. Some had done research. Some were working on where the technology is going to go in the next few years. So yeah, we might have been invited and taken over by Samsung, but it certainly wasn't a Samsung event in any way. It wasn't a marketing event or anything like that. It was basically a chance for us to speak to people in the industry and from all over the industry and find out what people's thoughts are, whether 8K is going to take off. And I think the thing that we can get out of the way straight away is that 8K is going to happen. Whether we like it or not, it is going to happen. 8K is going to be a thing. We already have 8K TVs on the market from Samsung.
We're going to have a lot more
and Sony
very soon, and a lot cheaper.
So
thanks for the Chinese.
Yeah. So this is the way it's going, and I think one of the best. They were all great presentations, but the one that really stuck with me was Display Search. And when you're talking about an independent voice, they certainly were an independent voice. No punches pulled. He basically laid everything on the table as to where the TV industry is going, which I thought was fascinating, just finding out about where panel production is heading in the next 4 or 5 years. And obviously China is the big thing here. We're going to get oversupply, which means prices are going to plummet, which I took as we could possibly see quite a few big names move in.
Actually, interestingly, he had some interesting comments to make about not just supply from China, but also the effect of Trump's tariffs as well. He said that in the short term,
yeah,
well, at least whilst Trump's president, we could see prices increase temporarily because of tariffs, but ultimately the long term production over the next 5 to 10 years is going to shift significantly to China, and we're going to see a big drop in prices. Yeah. I guess we'll end up in 5 years' time where we are now, which is the only TVs you can buy will be 8K TVs. In the same way, the only TV you can buy now, really, outside of very small ones, is a 4K TV.
Yeah, and many of the arguments for 8K are exactly the same as what they were for 4K.
Yeah.
Not so long ago. We're still struggling for 4K content. We're going to be struggling for the next 10 years for 8K content. The big white elephant in the room at this summit for me was the fact that there was nobody from Hollywood. You had the camera manufacturers there, you had a creative person there who was making commercials and so on, but you didn't have any Hollywood representation. Nobody from the big streaming companies like Netflix or Amazon. There was nobody there from the major studios. They all had been invited. So Chris, who organised the whole event, he runs Insight Media. He had invited the studios. Nobody came along. And for me, this is where the big issue is with 8K. 4K, it's a gradual step up. We still have 2K DIs, but things are starting now to move over to 4K DIs. But the thing is that a lot of the effects houses are still working in 2K and so on, and a lot of 4K Blu-rays that are released are taken from 2K DIs. Now that's not. We need to get we need to sort this out. So that doesn't mean it's 1080. It means that it's a different resolution. It's a 2K resolution, and when it's put to disc, it is upscaled, but it's upscaled. It's not the same as an upscaler in a TV with upscaling an image.
Very sophisticated upscaling.
It's very, very, very sophisticated. They take their time with it. It's done properly. And it's not done in real time. So when you say it's an upscale on a disc, it's not the same as upscaling on a TV. I think a lot of people get.
And you can tell that if you just compare the Blu-ray to the 4K disc, even if you know it's a 2K DI, you can still see more detail in there than you can on it. It's not necessarily as big a difference it is with a native 4K DI, but there is still an improvement in resolution, and obviously you have all the other benefits too. But it's a common misconception that people just assume it's just 1080p. It isn't. Unless you're watching Clone Wars, Attack of the Clones, that was shot in 1080p.
Yeah. So this is where the industry lies, and
I'll tell you what. One quick aside, Phil, because talking to the guy from Red, because you're right, there was no one there representing the TV companies or the video streamers or the studios, which is a shame, because clearly the one question people ask, there are two questions people ask when it comes to 8K: where's the content coming from, and how am I going to receive it? They at least addressed the second issue, I think, quite well in this seminar, but the first issue was somewhat left hanging. But the guy from Red Casino, they are shooting. I mean, all the studios, TV, Netflix, everyone, they're all shooting at very high resolution. So they're shooting it at least 4K, quite often at 6.5K, even up to 8K. So they're shooting at very high resolutions. But what they're not doing is the workflow isn't. I mean, at most the workflow is currently at 4K, quite often at 2K, and as you say, Phil, a lot of the visual effects done at 2K for two reasons. One is time, and the other one obviously is money.
Yeah.
What was interesting was how that they're using 8K and shooting these much higher resolutions as a way of doing things like they can completely change the framing. If you're taking the 8K source and then just doing a 4K image, you can totally change the framing of the film in post-production. You can. They showed us a clip of Mindhunter. Just a shot from Mindhunter, a bloke walking down the street, literally a bloke walking down. I mean, it's set in the 70s, so there was some period stuff going on, but he's just walking down the street, and the amount of visual effects involved was staggering, wasn't it? They were putting in all the trees in the street, they were taking out the dolly tracks. It was just amazing. So
I was under the impression, in terms of the content generator for 8K, that, I mean, certainly the argument's been made beforehand, is that this really is sports one to deliver upon. I thought that was the driver, that was the push influence.
It's gaming.
Oh God.
We're going to move on to this as the conversation goes on, but I think the big driver to get it moving is going to be gaming. Maybe Mark will correct me on this one, but certainly next gen console discussion is in 8K engines, and being able to do that. And the gaming side of things is certainly pushing things in terms of colour gamut as well. So there's lots of things happening there. And of course, the gaming is now bigger than Hollywood. I think it's twice the size, or even 3 times the size in terms of income and all the rest of it. But we'll come back to that one. So yeah, Steve was talking about visual effects, talking about how you can film high resolution. A lot of the stuff that's done on Netflix, it has to be 4K now.
Minimum of 4K.
Minimum of 4K. So any drama series or whatever, they have to be shot a minimum of 4K. 6.5 seems to be the sweet spot at the minute.
The Alexa 65 is 6.5K.
Yeah.
I think the Monstro, was it called?
Yeah.
The Monster or Monstro, the Red camera, that's at 8K. So there's some very high resolution cameras. I mean, and he made an interesting point, which was, it makes sense even if you're not necessarily finishing work or delivering work at 8K or even 4K. The higher the resolution you capture at, the more future-proofed you are. And the example he made was I Love Lucy, which was Lucille Ball show. She produced the series as well. Desi Studios, which was her and her husband's studio. They also produced Star Trek, actually. She shot I Love Lucy on 35mm film. So I Love Lucy still looks amazing to this day because it was shot on 35mm, whereas other shows were just shot on video, or if you look at UK stuff in the 70s and 80s, it was shot on studio videotape in the studio and on 16mm on location, which was always a weird
and a lot of American stuff was 8mm as well.
So. Back in the 50s, and certainly by the 80s and 90s in the US, they were shooting on 35mm regularly. So Friends, for example, looks amazing to this day because it was shot on 35mm film. But the higher resolution you can shoot at now, and this is something that I think I mentioned a couple of weeks ago, that someone had mentioned to me that Disney are having trouble remastering or doing, trying to create a 4K disc from the prequels, Star Wars prequels, because Clones and Sith were both shot at 1080p.
Yeah.
So there is nowhere for them to go. So the message is the higher resolution you shoot at now, the more options you've got down the line, and that makes sense.
Yeah, and I totally agree with the guy as well. I've been shooting 4K stuff for a long time on the Panasonic cameras that we used to do our videos. I shoot everything 4K. Doesn't mean that I work in 4K, but what it does allow is like you say, reframing. So if you shoot an interview with someone, you frame it once at 4K, but then if I'm putting it out as a 1080 video, I've then got the luxury of playing around with the framing. So it can look like you're using 2 or 3 cameras to shoot an interview, and you're not. You're just using one and reframing it. So so getting back to the whole 8K thing, it's going to happen. There's no point in resisting it, because it is what it is. It's going to happen. Manufacturers need to sell us more stuff. It just so happens that on this cycle, Samsung are ahead at the moment. They're pushing there. The cynics might say that that's because they don't have OLED and they need to do something to push their TVs forward. If that's the case or not, I'm not 100% sure, but certainly they're putting the effort in at the minute.
I think someone's always got to pull the trigger first, haven't they? I think Sony were the first with the 4K TVs, or Sony or Toshiba were the first 4K TVs I saw, I guess 6 years ago. Someone has to go first, but Sony's obviously already joined in, and you can expect a Sharp obviously been very active in Japan with 4K, 8K. So we can expect to see everyone else piling in next year. I bet you there'll be a lot of 8K TVs at CES. A lot.
Yeah, there will be, because the Olympics is next year. Tokyo 2020, it's going to be in 8K. There was somebody there from NHK who are developing the whole 8K ecosystem for the Japanese Olympics, and he says watching 8K TVs makes you younger.
There was a little bit of hype around some of this stuff, but I think what I came away with was 2 things really. Well, 3 things. One was there's going to be panel production is going to increase and become cheaper, so there's going to be a lot more 8K TVs and much lower price points going forward. That the workflows have been improved. So the guy from Red, for example, the reason he was there was to show that they had a software that could run off an NVIDIA graphics card on a laptop that could do 8K workflows. So the workflows are getting better and cheaper and easier. And the big question, I guess everyone has to think, is even if you've got content, how are you going to get it? And the guy who was doing a presentation on compression said that currently compression, with current compression technology, you're looking at delivering 8K at about 70 to 80 meg, which obviously is quite high. But within the next 5 years, he's expecting it to be down to sort of 30 to 40, which is where we are currently with 4K. So that would be a big change. And then also there was a guy doing a presentation on 5G, and 5G certainly has the capability to deliver 8K with more than enough bandwidth for that. So I think delivery over IP, possibly, and also satellite to a degree, because that's what I guess NHK is using currently in Japan, is certainly feasible. And it's just a question really of where we're going to get the content from in the end. Yeah,
and of course at this moment in time there will not be a physical media system for 8K.
Definitely not.
That's just not going to happen. So it has to be compression. So at the minute, HEVC, they're able to use that, but like you say, it's 75, 80 meg a second.
What's the new one called? VC?
It's H.266 is probably going to be the name of it. And it's twice as, well, HEVC is H.265, so it's a step up.
So imaginative too.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, they're working on this stuff. I have no doubt they will get it to work. Processing power, it seems to be every 6 to 7 years we seem to double, the capabilities and all the rest of it. So
that Moore's law.
So yeah, it's similar to that. So I think it's every 2 years with.
Oh, VVC. That's what they're thinking of calling it.
VVC, yeah. So yeah, I mean, it's all interesting stuff. It is. We're right at the cusp of it. Starting to move now, and like you say, I think next year, 2020, Japanese Olympics, all that kind of thing, it will become every manufacturer is gonna put their hat in the ring. They're all going to have panels. One of the other interesting things for me, Steve, was so one of the speakers was talking about SD, because obviously in the UK and Europe we still have standard definition channels on our TVs. So what happens when you get an 8K TV, and how do you get that SD picture onto your 8K panel? Now there's lots of talk about Samsung's AI processing, and it is really, really good. Their upscaling engine is fantastic. You put a 4K disc in, upscale it to 8K, it looks amazing. Do it with HD, looks really good as well. But SD, it's for every 1 pixel of SD, you need 108 pixels. So if you do the maths on that, it's 99.2%
of the image is being guessed.
It's being guessed by the processing. So yeah, it's not for SD.
Well, I mean, I think when you're talking about an 8K panel and an 8K world, one would hope by then will be at least have full HD as the norm.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, to be honest, I mean, most SD channels look appalling on even a 4K TV. You can only do, like you say, you can only do so much when you're having to interpolate or guess so much of the picture. It's never going to be. I mean, and also a lot of the broadcasters are broadcasting really compressed, highly compressed images that look terrible anyway. I think is that with any upscaling processing, it depends on what you put into it. The better content you can put into it, the better the results are going to be at the other end. And like you say, if you put in a quality 4K disc into an 8K TV, it can look stunning.
It can.
Or a good Blu-ray.
Yeah.
I've got the Samsara Blu-ray, which is a really cracking Blu-ray for testing things on, and it looked absolutely stunning. I showed it to a friend, and he thought it was a 4K image. He absolutely was swore blind it was 4K, and I said, no, it's not. It's an upscaled Blu-ray. But that's good processing with good source content can look stunning.
It can, and of course, one of the other advantages you have with 8K is pixel density. So you've got far more pixels there than you do with 4K. So you can upscale a 4K image and it can look really, really good, really nice. And it's one part that I think, just because a lot of people haven't yet seen an 8K TV, a quality 8K TV doing that with content, once you see it, you think, oh yeah, absolutely, actually this looks really, really nice. And you could go for a period of time without having native 8K material. If your source,
I mean, we did exactly that
like
in the early days of 4K.
Of course, we did.
For two
we
or
did the
three
same
years,
HD as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, that's all the way. It's always going to the way it's going to be. The display technology will move ahead of the content production, just the way it is.
They always do what they do with certain video games emulators and just show it at the correct resolution, but in the center of the screen.
Oh, do you imagine how tiny the SD would be? It would be like a postage stamp.
Yeah, it'd be tiny.
And obviously, screen size is another issue. There is a clear trend towards larger TVs. That's been happening for a while now. That's going to continue. And obviously, the bigger the television, the more pixels you've got, the better, really. So that's another factor. So increased production, larger screen sizes, cheaper panels, and hopefully, fingers crossed, more content.
I think 65 is as small as you want to go with 8K. I think 75 and above is really the sweet spot for 8K.
Yeah, and that's what we're seeing. Most TVs are. I mean, there is a 65-inch Q9 500 and Q900, but most of the TVs we're seeing announced so far have been in the much larger screen sizes.
Yeah. Just wanted to touch on as well, RAG on Twitter, he said he was confused about 8K still being in use, because he obviously heard the podcast with Paul from IHS Market on saying that it was going to be at least 10 years before 8K became mainstream or matured, and he was confused because he didn't quite understand why 8K has been spoken about at the minute. Well, it has to start somewhere. Obviously, he was being conservative, I think, with his estimation there in terms of 10 years, but it's certainly still 5 years away yet, if not a little bit longer. Like we say, the content problem hasn't really been solved just yet, but what could help the adoption of 8K, and we spoke about it a little bit earlier in the conversation. I'm going to come to Mark now, because obviously the new consoles have been rumoured, the specs are out there now about what is coming from the console manufacturers, and 8K is being spoken about, Mark.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we've just had E3, big video games conference out in LA, and I suppose the big kind of hardware news from that is Microsoft announcing their Project Scarlet and the new Xbox console coming next year, and that will apparently be 4 times the power of the Xbox One X, which is their current kind of flagship model, and should be capable of doing 8K graphics up to 120 FPS. So, if you're talking about next year with the Olympics, then everything seems to be kind of coming together at the right point for, new adopters for 8K. There's rumours, though, that it's going to be potentially 2 console launches, so they might have a high-spec system and a lower-spec one. But there's going to be a disk drive there, so, we will still have physical media. And then, obviously, you've also got Google Stadia as well, which... they're going to be rolling that out at 4K 60, but then with an eye on 8K 120 frames per second as well. So, yeah, it seems like it's kind of arriving sooner than everyone expected.
Yeah, there is that. I wonder if the marketing's going to use 2020 vision. That'd be clever, wouldn't it? Because obviously it's 2020, the Olympics.
Yeah. You've missed your vocation.
I'm
Phil.
wasted on this. Wasted.
I wish I was.
We've got 2020 vision, Rec 2020. Could the possibilities are endless.
I think 2020 vision might have slightly more permeation with the general public than Rec 2020, Steve. Just
True.
throw it out there. just yeah. I mean, I have no empirical
Living in a
evidence
little
to back
AV
that up,
bubble
but-
for too long, Steve.
Yeah, but I think gaming makes sense this time around to be a driver, because obviously Hollywood's not there yet, Steve. And
And
like
it can't
you
be
said,
porn, because who wants to watch porn in 8K? Christ.
no.
It has to be. I honestly, completely unrelated. I was just thinking that. I'm thinking, do you know what? That's
That's
going to
too
be
much.
niche, isn't it?
Yeah, that's just too much detail, I think, probably.
Yeah. You're one step away from porn with smell-o-vision there. No.
Oh
Yeah.
God.
But see, the big question for me as well is, 8K is going to happen. There's no stopping it. It's going to march on there. Next year's going to be a big year for it. We're going to be reviewing it. We're going to be using it and all the rest of it. But where do we go from 8K, Steve? Because I think 8K, I don't think you can go any further. I'm sure manufacturers will push it further because they've got to sell
theoretically
something.
could, but I think we'd be reaching the limits of human vision.
Yeah.
I think, if personally, rather than chasing more resolution, I like to see higher frame rates being more of a priority, because I think that's an area, I think we discussed it on previous podcast, is an area where it really adds significant value, particularly to sport. And also, obviously, I mean, HDR and wider color gamuts does improve. One of the reasons why 4K discs which looks so much better than Blu-rays, even if they are only at 2K DIs, because they have HDR as well. So there's other areas, and also I was thinking when we were doing one of the guys was doing a presentation on that on the event that day, I was thinking, imagine making a film at 8K, not 24p, not high frame rate because it's a movie, but 8K, for Rec 2020, 10,000 nit HDR. Imagine how amazing it could look.
Yeah,
But surely, in that case, the argument would be that the thing after 8K is that socket in the back of the head you have in the Matrix.
Yeah, like an episode of Black Mirror, basically, just something you attach to the back of your ear and suddenly you're just straight into your brain.
Yeah.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah,
I guess the other thing would be. I mean, it hasn't really caught off in the way I thought it would, but I still think VR.
Now you see, isn't the limiter here that VR at the moment? It's weird for historical reasons. I follow a couple of people who are heavily invested in VR on Twitter. As I understand it, the hardware limitation at the moment is that there are no, obviously it needs two screens in the thing, and there's simply a brick wall of available resolution.
Yeah,
and it's possible that 8K might inadvertently, together with mobile phones, provide the boost required to give VR, because at the moment, let's face it, VR is capable of some extraordinary effects, but I don't know about you, on the occasions I've used it, it's just not the resolution just isn't there yet. It can't do the whole better than life Star Trek holodeck thing.
No, it can't.
But that's good. That's just that's, I say, simple. That's a straightforward technological limitation that I can't believe for a second is going to be insurmountable. It just
Well,
needs a bit more
it's
time.
going pretty much hand in hand with mobile technology, VR at the moment. So it's, as one progresses, the other will as well. So it's going to end up something of a kind of symbiotic relationship. But with regards to 8K and where we go from there, I think for every once in a while I watch kind of one of these things where it's like the property shows where someone moves to like Florida or somewhere like that, and you realize just the size of American houses, and you think they probably can go bigger with their TVs, but I think I'm almost kind of like I'm topping out now.
55 is going to be a difficult size to exceed. Bearing in mind that my 55 inch television, same as Mark's, there's very little physical television to shed.
No, there's no bezel at all.
It's all screen already, so any increase in size is going to lead to a physical increase in dimensions. And I keep an Overwatch on Rightmove as I realise that I'm going to live under a bridge somewhere, actually, realistically. But nonetheless,
but you're going to have a cracking hi-fi.
I'm going to have an amazing television there at the same time. But
and some lovely Maltesers.
Exactly. But nonetheless, I completely agree with Mark here. If its efficacy is tied to you moving beyond 60 inches, That's going to be a problem in Europe.
But you see,
not just the UK. It's going to be a problem in Europe.
Funnily enough, though, Ed, the IHS market figures, which were presented to us, was it the Philips event or Panasonic? I can't quite remember which event it was.
It was Philips, I think.
I think it was Philips. Yeah, all the data is pointing to European households catching up with the US in terms of screen sizes for. And I don't know where they're putting them, but that's what the market research is saying. So,
I don't live in a big house, and I have managed to fit an 84-inch screen in there. I'm not recommending it because it does dominate the room somewhat. But I'll tell you what, you get used to it bloody quickly. Yeah. And when it goes, you put back up a 55-inch TV that's like a bloody postage stamp. It's ridiculous. But yeah, I mean, there's no question that we are gradually moving towards larger average screen sizes. I mean, currently I think it's about 42 inches, but I would say that's changing fast because if you're looking to buy an OLED, you can't go smaller than 55. Currently.
Although you will be getting a 48 inch.
That will change soon, but I don't know how much demand there is. I mean, if you're going to buy, I bought a 55-inch OLED, and the same one as Mark and Ed. And the first thing I thought when I put up was I should have got a 65.
Which you then did.
I have not had that as an issue, and to the extent where my dad is desperate for an OLED, and we've done the tape measure job with the dimensions of my B7. It's just not going to fit.
Well, the 48 is definitely happening. It's going to be next year.
Yeah.
So.
Well, we'll see how that goes. I think he's got the itch.
But the price will likely be the same, or even a little bit more.
I've said in the past
that
the price is not a concern. Honestly, you could charge exactly the same for the 48 as you do for the 55. Arguably, for the first gen, where you've got a backlog of people waiting, cynically, you could charge even more.
Yeah,
I'm sure I won't receive any thanks from people listening to the podcast for suggesting that. But if you are a captive audience, then they'll be fine.
So moving it back, I kind of agree with you, Steve. I want to see 8K be the plateau where things sort of dip out for a few years, maybe even a decade, and we catch up in other areas, like you say, HDR, the bitrate on the panels.
12-bit. No one's delivering it. 12-bit would be good, wouldn't it? Or 422.
The problem with that, though, historically, the public haven't been very good at understanding why they might want to make that change, which is why we've always been pulled into headline resolution changes.
Now, we see for a long time, though, Ed, and I keep going back and watching Matt's videos. So Matt does Tech Moan channel. If you haven't seen it on YouTube and you like old tech and that kind of thing, absolutely go and watch his videos. He's absolutely superb at presenting them, and he thoroughly researches everything, and he covers everything from Laserdisc to CD disc and all the rest of it, CD video that was called back then, and so on. And things moved in cycles back then, but they were a lot longer cycles, and I think that's where things have gone wrong. It seems to be every year manufactured. I mean, I've got a Yamaha AVR in here, which I forgot I had it here for review because it looks identical to the one I used to have and usually have.
Look, we've had this. I don't disagree with you. The AV category destroyed itself.
Yeah.
By doing this, but unfortunately, I just don't think that the TV manufacturers have an answer to how they structure a model with a slower rate of advancement.
Yeah,
after years and years of breakneck speed, I don't know if they know how to go slow anymore.
Yeah, this is the problem. I don't know what you think, Steve, but certainly I would much rather things slowed down and we started to catch up in other areas.
There's a big danger of sort of consumer fatigue as well. You can't keep foisting new resolutions on them, and they're going to start going, I'm happy with what I've got. Because at some point that the benefit is law of diminishing returns, isn't it, in terms of the benefits you're going to get. And I think there are other areas where they can get more noticeable benefits quicker and easier, to be honest. I mean, if you're talking about sports broadcasting, then higher frame rates, as we discovered a few weeks ago in that interview that we did, doesn't actually take up as much bandwidth as I thought it would.
Exactly.
So it seems like a quick and easy win. And the TVs now can do it, and they're going to be doing a high frame rates with gaming on the new consoles as well. So that seems like something that people should be looking at more, I think, rather than increasing resolution, because it will have an immediate improvement in terms of your.
I was having a drunken discussion with someone the other day. Just to be clear on this, my absolute most satisfying phase of AV ownership was moving to a DVI connection between a Marantz DV8400 DVD player and a Panasonic PWD6 plasma. That just for me, it for whatever reason, I remember being just utterly delighted with it in a way that subsequent AV changes, like, oh, that's better, and so on and so forth. That was, at that point, in terms of the equipment that I was running at the time, was the most satisfying get-up that I've ever had. And in part, it was a reflection that, things had been stable enough over a period of a few years to reach that point organically, although then everything then went completely ballistic again after that point. And I don't mean to keep banging on about this. One of the reasons that the two-channel side of things has seen the revival it has is because it represents a known quantity where you won't have a valueless product inside of 12 months.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, so we need to move things on. We're definitely going to come back to 8K. It's going to be churning along for a long time. But it was a really interesting summit. I'm glad that I went along and listened to what the speakers had to say. All of them were excellent. They'd obviously put a lot of heart and soul into what they wanted to say. No, they weren't all singing from the same song sheet, which I think helped Steve. And I think the fact that there was no bias as well. There was, it was, each had their own little bit of the market they wanted to talk about, and even though it was sponsored by Samsung, certainly it wasn't heavy in terms of marketing and all the rest of it. People were allowed to say what they wanted to say, and it was really interesting.
Did I have to ask, on a non-8K, did you eat anything ridiculous whilst you were out there?
Yes, absolutely.
The sheer volume of food you get served.
We went to an Italian restaurant, but obviously they warned us. The waiters did warn us and say, "Look, one of the main courses feeds 4." We
still ordered 4 main courses, and there were only 8 of us at the table. It was just a mountain of food. Yeah, and the desserts were there's one called Titanic. The dessert called Titanic could have sunk the Titanic, and it was massive. We went to dine on the Wednesday just before you got your car to the airport, and I wasn't particularly hungry. I thought I'll have a slice of cake. It was enormous.
It was a cake.
Yeah. No, it was probably the size of a whole British cake, but it was like one slice.
Italian restaurant, when we made the joke about desserts, I said we'll probably get an entire cheesecake. We actually did get an entire cheesecake.
Yes,
that was what came out.
And Steve, did you get to drink many cups of deeply unsatisfying American coffee?
Yes, although
awesome.
I need a coffee bad. I can be pretty, I can turn a blind eye to its quality as long as there's quantity of it.
Can I just say that last series of the Grand Tour nailed American coffee perfectly, where he's putting half a bean in. Yeah, just giant cups of tepid brown water.
Yeah,
just full of creamers.
I'll definitely be going back to New York though. I absolutely fell in love with the city. It's just one big film set. It was everything I thought it was going to be. Anyway, we need to move on quite quickly because we've got lots to still talk about this week. So before heading out to New York, I went down to London to meet up with Panasonic on the Friday before that. So that would have been, the 7th of June. And I met up with their engineering team, TV engineering team, to have a look at the GZ2000. You might be asking why I was going down to have a look at it when I saw it at CES and at the convention in February. Well, quite a bit's happened since then. They don't stop developing these products before they come to market, and there's usually a long lead up time. So I think we're expecting our review samples probably later in July, which is quicker than I thought we were going to get them. And there have been quite a few performance related things that they have tweaked it up a bit. They've added things in that that we weren't expecting them to add in. I'm going through my list here because there's a few of them that I'm still not allowed to talk about that are embargoed until the sets are ready for review.
Self-destruct function.
But the main thing that we're getting across was that it is an LG panel on the GZ2000 because there's only one manufacturer. But what they do is they take the back off the cell. So the entire back of the cell of the panel is Panasonic, and the way that they're doing that, they're using heat management system in there. Again, I can't go into too much detail because some of this is still embargoed, but basically the upshot is that they've managed to increase the brightness, the whole APL brightness by 30%, which gives them a lot more headroom. And because they're dissipating heat better and managing heat a lot better, that also has an effect on any potential burning because you don't have the heat there, and heat is one of the factors that can cause things to burn in. So there's quite a bit of technology going on behind there. So they're now saying that they will be above 1000 nits peak brightness. which is going to be interesting to see if they actually
That'll
do
be a
get
first
to that.
for.
It will be.
Apart from the Sony professional monitor, but that'll be a first for an OLED TV.
Yeah.
If so, that it is partly aimed at the professional market, this television, so that would make sense, I guess, wouldn't it? They want people to use it as a large screen monitor in production houses. I got to say, looking at it at the this is obviously the older version before they tweaked it a bit more, but looking at it at the Panasonic convention, it looked absolutely stunning.
Well, I'm not going to say what TV it was up against. Obviously, we're in a basement room in a London hotel, and but they'd taken the time to set the TVs up, and I was given the remote controls. There were little sessions, so I was in with John Archer. So there was only the two of us having a look at the TV, so we were handed the remote controls. We could play whatever content we wanted to play through the disc player. There was nothing going on that shouldn't have been going on. We could set up the other display any way we wanted, and so on. The thing for me, and the thing that when you're doing side-by-side comparisons, and you notice when you're doing an LCD against an OLED panel, is that the whites on an OLED are cyan. There's a tinge of blue to the whites. You're never going to get away from that because it's the spectral light that's how it produces its light. Whereas a backlight on an LED LCD is more sort of magenta. It has a warmer tone because of the backlight and the way that the backlight works. So you're measuring D65 and it measures the same on each panel, but the spectrum of light is produced differently and your eye perceives it differently. So you do see the cyan in the whites on an OLED. Not in this Panasonic, you don't. That was what flabbergasted me. Every bit of content I put on there, it looked lovely, warm, the way it should. It looked cinematic. Unfortunately, they didn't have the BVM Sony monitor to sit next to it. They didn't have it there, so in terms of comparing it to the Sony OLED monitor, I wasn't able to do that at the time. But it just looks so cinematic, and Black Rifles looked fantastic. Above Black looked amazing, and watching it next to this other top OLED panel that was next to it, there were clear differences. It was night and day differences between it. So
you say top OLED panel, that does rather narrow it down, doesn't it?
Yeah, but
I had to hazard the guess.
Well, it's another company that produces reference level monitors for the film and TV business. So,
take a wild guess.
Yeah, and I've got to say the differences were jaw dropping. And like I say, there was nothing going on there.
That other TV's not a bad TV either.
That other TV's fantastic. So,
so that gives you an idea of the level of performance.
It got me really juiced for the GZ2000. I cannot wait to get in and play about with it and sit and actually test it, because from what I saw from the preview, it looks, and Panasonic have always done this. They've always gone for the picture quality side of things. You look at the TVs and you think, well, the OS, it's okay, it works, but it's not a web OS or a Tizen, you know what I mean? And it's a little bit weaker in other areas, but where they really nail it, and for us enthusiasts, it's important, is with the picture quality. And it looks like, obviously, with the custom panel, they really have move things along, and what he was saying to me as well is that the 30% APL is only on the 2000, but all the other benefits, like the white balance, like the warm whites, it's going to be throughout the whole OLED range. So again, it's I'm looking forward to seeing them. It was really interesting morning spent there. So I think we're caught up on the TV side of things. So quickly, we'll give him 5 minutes. Ed's going to talk speakers from Polk.
Yeah, this isn't quite as dramatic as Steve's soundbar review, where it's like, okay, we've reviewed the Polk, we'll stop reviewing other soundbars now. This is the S15e, and the E stands for European tuning. And that's important because it's, broadly speaking, the same speaker as the Polk S15 that's been out in the US for a bit of time and was sold in Europe as well. But they've taken it to a man called Karl-Heinz Fink, who I've spoken about before. He is probably one of the single most important people involved in acoustics at the moment, has been probably for the last 15, 20 years. And he, with a budget of £6.50 and some sticky back plastic, has modified it for European work. And it's extraordinarily good. I'm aware of this. I was thinking about this morning. There's a car analogy here. At the moment, Q Acoustics makes the Volkswagen Golf of the affordable stand-mount loudspeaker thing. And essentially, any argument that's being made that you should buy something other than the Golf has to be tempered with, well, the Golf is the sensible choice. You know exactly what you're going to get, and it may not be the absolute best in a given area, but it's a known quantity of general excellence. And I have to start the gushing bit of this by saying that the Polk is not a pretty loudspeaker. Even by the standards of American loudspeakers, it's not a pretty loudspeaker. But it does, and I'm going to bold words here, I think it is the best sounding £250 speaker I've tested, full stop. It genuinely can do some extraordinary things. And furthermore, it will do those extraordinary things almost regardless of what you place it on and how close it is to a rear wall. So given that people don't always have the luxury of being able to do a perfect speaker setup with £250 loudspeakers, it will do excellent things, and it will do them almost regardless of what you choose to do with them. Unless you stick them on a floor or, I don't know, in a cupboard or something like that, they will genuinely deliver what they're supposed to do. I don't need to go into much else of that. It's all going to be in the review, which I assume goes up this week. But they were one of the most surprising things I've tested in a long time, because I sort of took them out of the box. It's like, well, this is going to be... I mean, I've said in the past, I don't enjoy administering a shoeing to bad products. So it's like, this isn't going to be a lot of fun. But they were absolutely sensational. And they aren't attractive. And you'll have to make a decision based on your own personal preferences as to whether you can go with that. But honestly, I haven't tested another £250 speaker that's as good as they are. So,
well,
yeah,
that's quite a compliment.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. This isn't a category killer thing like that command bar is, where it costs £6 and does everything. It's incrementally a little bit better than the Q Acoustics as far as I'm concerned, but the Q Acoustics is unquestionably a better looking loudspeaker. The Mission is a little bit more fun. The Acoustic Energy has slightly better bass, but as an all-rounder that will go out and do what it does under almost any operating condition, it's astoundingly clever and really, really, really good. However is heading up Polk at the moment, I cannot fault their ambition. Let's just put it like that. They really are on a bit of a roll.
You see, I don't think Polk have ever been a bad manufacturer, and I think they've always had quality products. I think in the UK, the way that we see things, it depends on who's distributing them at the moment in time.
Yes.
They seem to disappear from the market for a few years, and then they'll maybe find another distributor, and then they're suddenly back at the forefront again. And our exposure to the products is not... it's not there all the time. It's not consistent.
Certainly.
Yeah, absolutely. No. So whatever they're doing, and who is it that's handling them at the minute? Because they're doing a good job getting
it's
the stuff
Sound
out
United,
there.
so they're with Marantz Den on, so on and so forth. So yes, they're in dealers who we both, they're in some of the AVForums assured advertisers. They're in a clutch of other dealers, all of whom I would describe as reputable people who do not mess about.
There we go.
So it's not a case of having to hunt down to some weirdo that you've never heard of. Thanks to the backing of Sound United. And let's face it, if you are a retailer, you don't want to go in with companies where you don't know what's going to happen in the next 6 months. So on the forums, there has been a lot of argument over Sound United buying up a lot of companies, whether that's good for competition, bad for competition, so on and so forth. Not the time to get into this conversation because we're tight for time, but it is nonetheless important if you are looking for retailers to stock your brand, that retailers have a degree of faith that you're going to be there in 2 weeks' time. And Sound United unquestionably give any brand that they have that clout.
Absolutely. Right. That's it for hardware. Like you say, I mean, as you can probably tell, there's lots coming in the weeks ahead when it comes to hardware. We haven't even touched on what we're reviewing at the moment, and there's lots of really nice product in there as well, so we'll come back to this next week. But that's it for hardware reviews, news this week. We'll be back in a sec with some gaming and some films. Okay, so like I say, gaming, E3 happened. It's only now and again that we get Mark to do some work on the podcast. He's usually here just for his comedic value. But he's actually going to talk about gaming this week because E3 happened and because we've got some content going up on the site as well. So what excitement happened, Mark?
Well, I mean, I guess the big news was what we touched on before about the new Xbox coming next year, towards the end of the year, kind of holidays 2020. And it seems very much almost a kind of reset for Microsoft after the kind of abysmal Xbox One launch where they kind of pushed everything about TV, if you remember the kind of HDMI in and that kind of thing. This was very much centered on the idea of gaming and launching it alongside a new Halo Infinite. So yeah, it seems very much kind of going back to basics. It seems slightly mad that it has been, it will be at the time 7 years since the Xbox One was released.
Is it really 7 years? Gee.
Yeah, it is. And I genuinely swore after I sold mine a couple of years ago, you know what, I'm done. I'm a one console man now, but I'm ready to be hurt again. You know, that lure of a new console, particularly, I mean, just it does sound fantastic also with the idea that, I mean, they've been slowly kind of pushing more kind of game services. You've got the Xbox Games Pass, which is a bit like EA Access, where you get access to a library of games. They were talking at E3 about their xCloud service, so that will be similar to Google Stadia, where you'll be streaming your games, where it'll not only be, it seems it might end up kind of, I don't know whether it's going to be some kind of like a bifurcated service where you'll either choose to have one or the other, but you can stream to your mobile from the kind of hub that's streaming all these games, or you can do it from your own console. So the idea of just being able to kind of play a game and then say, right, I'm out the door and I can clip my mobile onto a controller and be playing it, just seems an absolutely fantastic idea. Yeah, as I said before, the rumours that there might be kind of two consoles, but nothing obviously regards that at E3. But they're pushing, there will be a disc drive, the backwards compatibility for original Xbox games, 360 games and Xbox One games. And I guess with another big thing is that it's 8K, capable of 8K. On the one hand, for a lot of people, if say, you're watching sport or you're another medium, you'd say, well, if I don't have an 8K TV, that's a bit of an issue. However, when it comes to gaming, you obviously have the benefit. If your TV can accept that, but it doesn't display it, you still have the benefits of kind of what is, in essence, just the kind of best form of anti-aliasing you can get, which is just downsampling the image so it will look, immensely better. So, you're still gaining benefits from that. So even if it might seem like it's coming slightly early in the kind of generation cycle, as we've had this kind of mid-generation refresh with the Xbox One S, the PlayStation 4 Pro and the Xbox One X, there are still benefits. There's still that idea of, buy it first. And I know so many people who bought, consoles capable of 1080p before they owned the 1080p screens, who owned, consoles capable of 4K before they owned the 4K. So it's one of those things where it's fine to kind of future-proof. With regards to games, I don't think there were really many massive kind of surprises. I think the fact that Cyberpunk 2077 with kind of an appearance by Keanu Reeves seemed to steal the show kind of tells you the level of everything. There, everyone just basically went gooey-eyed over Keanu Reeves in CG form. When you say went everyone, it's not an understatement. If you habitually use Twitter, there are certain worldwide events will get X number of tweets. I mean, this was up there with someone assassinating Trump. It was ridiculous. It was well over 4 million tweets. It's dwarfed World War III kicking off here with Iran.
That Keanu Reeves is in a computer game. Blimey.
Oh, yeah.
We might have to reassess who we consider about genuine movie stars.
But everybody loves Keanu, though, don't they?
Mm.
Oh, exactly. Yeah.
I am looking forward to the new Billy.
He is an awesome dude.
Yeah.
Seemingly he's an awesome but lonely dude, Steve, I was reading.
That's not real. I think that's the kind of the lonely Keanu images. But he's a cool guy and a decent human being, which is a rarity these days.
Yes.
And apparently immortal and ageless.
There is that. Out. Yes. He doesn't seem to age. But,
it's a vampire.
Sorry, this probably doesn't.
Well, once he's captured in video game form, we won't need his corporeal form.
The Matrix will become a reality.
Yeah.
Yeah. Other than that, Final Fantasy VII Remake is looking good. Nintendo announced that they're making a sequel to Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, which is, I think anybody could have guessed that. But nice news, they're making Luigi's Mansion 3. That'll be coming out this year. The Witcher 3 will be coming over to the Switch. And the thing that I was kind of the game I was most interested in seeing was Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, which, you know, if you've been hankering for a single player Star Wars game, you've been kind of, you know, very, very thirsty for this. And it looks surprisingly middle of the road, but yet strangely, I'm kind of fine with that now. You know, we've
middle
had
of the road would be a good description of all Lucasfilm output from the last few years. I suspect.
Yeah. Well, also the fact is that Respawn have kind of had their hands tied slightly with the fact that now everything has to be canon. So you know, you can't just completely go off script and make a great Star Wars game because you've come up with some kind of a gameplay idea that's fun to play. You have to run it past them. So it could end up as that kind of game. So yeah,
what was that one from years ago with the Starforge that you played as both good and evil? Because it bore nothing in any resemblance to any piece of actual film, comic book, or cartoon, but nonetheless, it was a cracking game. I can't remember what it was called.
You're thinking of like the roleplay game Knights of the Old Republic?
Knights of the Old Republic.
Yes, I think that's the one.
Fantastic.
Which is being turned into a film. So
well, there you go. Life imitates art.
Yeah, and the circle is complete.
I have a sneaking suspicion that's what Benioff and Weiss are working on.
Right.
Knights of the Old Republic.
Anyway, so those were my little game highlights from E3 anyway.
Excellent. And if people want more E3 game stuff, then Ian and Luke have done some articles. You'll find them on the homepage or in the game section of the forums. Right, so moving on, we've got films opening this week. I think we'll all pick one and talk about it. So I'll go first. Brightburn. It's out on Wednesday in the UK. I really like the premise of this one. I've seen a couple of trailers now for it, and it's basically Superman,
isn't it?
Superman going bad, basically. So, you know, alien child arrives on Earth, raised by human parents, and he's not a good guy, basically, and uses his powers for evil, and it looks really, really interesting there. So yeah, I think I might.
I'm assuming based upon the writers' surnames, they're somewhere related to
each other.
James Gunn, yeah. I mean, yeah, they're Brian and Mark Gunn, Gunn. I think they are.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're siblings or children, but they're definitely related to James Gunn. So it's something to do with James Gunn, which is not a bad thing.
Yeah, and it's only an hour and a half long, which is great
to
see these days.
Perfect length for a horror film.
Yeah. Right, Steve, you want to go next?
Yeah, Toy Story 4. Obviously, it's the big release of the week. I have to say, I did feel when I first heard they were making this that. Don't, because I thought that Toy Story 3 rounded things off nicely as far as Toy Story films go, but obviously it made $1 billion, so they were going to make another one. This one's got Keanu Reeves in it, so already sounds good.
Hooray!
And in fact, it's got a fantastic, obviously all the originals are back, unless you're dead in real life, but they've introduced a whole new bunch of characters, and I've seen the trailers, and I've got to say it looks like it could be really good fun. So I think the reviews so far have been excellent that I've read.
Could this be the first film series in history that would have 4 excellent films?
Would be. If it's good, it will be the first film in history.
Can we be clear about this? I didn't enjoy Toy Story 3. I know this makes me probably mentally ill.
But really didn't enjoy it, or just one of those kind of like kind of Temple of Doom. I thought it was slightly the low point.
No, I genuinely thought it misfired a couple of messages. And I've watched it once. I've never felt compelled to watch it again. And I have to be honest. I think Toy Story 2 is just a triumph. Every second of Toy Story 2 is perfection.
Yeah, especially the opening 5 minutes. The opening 5 minits of that film.
When you consider they had to make that in a year, it's staggering how good Toy Story 2 is. Because they scrapped everything, and because it was really going to be made as a straight-to-video sequel, and they scrapped. They basically said, "Look, this isn't good enough for Pixar. We can do better than this." So they scrapped everything, started again from scratch, and had about a year to do the whole lot. They basically worked 24/7 on that film, and somehow they produced one of the greatest sequels of all time.
Yeah,
but again, there's an element of occasionally when your back is against the wall, and there's no time for fat or dicking about, and I guess it shows. And it's just, don't get me wrong, I'm perfectly happy to give this the benefit of the doubt, and I'm sure it will be a very, very good film. But 4 great films, unfortunately, there's already a case that I would argue that there's not 3 great ones. So even if this one is great, it hasn't done anything. So we'll see.
I'm going to go and see it because Keanu's in it. providing a voice for it, should I say? I'm not actually in it. Yes, that looks fun.
All right, Mark.
Okay, Child's Play is out 21st of June. Obviously, is this a kind of just a reboot?
I'm assuming that it's a reboot. The thing that amazed me was that Mark Hamill's in it.
Presumably, he's the voice of Chucky.
Doing the voice of Chucky.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I saw Mark Hamill in the cast, and I thought, that has to be surely the voice of Chucky.
Yeah.
The thing is,
he did actually. He's a very good voice.
He's a great voice.
Yeah, he does a fantastic Joker in the animated Batman series.
Yeah,
he's
done some really
exactly.
good
I was going to say that.
It's like an oddity that he's also been in something donkeys years ago that he's differently famous for. But he would be, in his own right, he'd be a tremendously highly regarded voice artist. So, yeah.
So I guess this is one of those things where it might be kind of playing into, like with people who wanted to see it, who'd never seen the kind of original two-parter, and maybe just these kind of horror reboots kind of play into that a little bit. But seeing it's only a 15 just slightly makes me think, again, an hour and a half, it's just going to be kind of just schlocky fun for that.
I also have to say my heart sinks a bit at the inclusion of Aubrey Plaza. She's she's a lovely lady. And the fact that she is an actress at all in his own way, in account of what happened to her in the past, is quite extraordinary. But I think we can probably establish by now, in terms of her output, that Parks and Recreation plays to her unique attributes, and everything else she's just gloriously indifferent in. So it's not going well. And I don't know who Brian Tyree Henry is. I'm assuming it's the child.
Yeah, I guess so.
Do you want to wrap it up then, Ed, on films coming out this week?
Yes. Okay. Well, this worries me because unlike all the other films here, which have 2019 next to them, this has 2018 next to it, which means that it's been sitting around for a while. It's called The Captor. Sorry, no. Yeah, it is called Captor, but it was originally called Stockholm, and it's about the 1973 heist which inspired the idea of Stockholm Syndrome, where
the original title makes a lot more sense.
It does. It makes a lot more sense, and for whatever reason they've got shot of it. Possibly a complaint from the city Stockholm. I don't know. That being said, Ethan Hawke, Noomi Rapace, and Mark Strong are all people I quite like. So, and it's at 1 hour and 32 minutes long. So it has many things that look quite promising, but for whatever reason they have waited possibly as much as a year before actually
sometimes it's just distribution, Ed. Sometimes things do sit because different countries have different distribution channels, and if it's not a major studio they tend to sit around a little bit.
No, that's fair enough. I mean, I'll be honest, I've got a bit of a man crush for Mark Strong. I like almost everything he's ever ddone.
I didn't want to be the one to say it, to be honest, but yeah.
Oh, good. We all have a man crush on Mark Strong. That's excellent. I love Mark Strong very much. He's done some.
I don't think I've ever seen him in anything bad. He's always good value, even if the film is bad.
I mean, that thing he did with Sacha Baron Cohen. You can tell that he's aware that he's in the middle of a bit of a cinematic car crash, but he essentially just goes bollocks and then just gets heavily stuck in. So that's I love almost all of his work. So yeah, well there we go. If there's one thing we've established from this, we all love Mark Strong. Hooray! And if you are Mark Strong, do get in touch. We'll do something terrible.
We would be delighted.
Yeah, get in touch. We're not really sure why you're getting in touch, but get in touch.
Go for a pint, have a chat.
Yeah, I'm buying. Yeah.
Oh, well, that's a rarity. The Earth would stop moving if that happened. Right. That's films going at the moment. We'll go over to the Discmaster for the disc releases, Steve.
On the 4K side, I've already got one, Cold Pursuit, which I think is a Liam Neeson action
film.
vehicle.
Yeah, watched it on the plane.
This is the one he was promoting when he got
yeah,
made by the inappropriate comments. Okay,
yes.
Right.
Yeah.
You saw it on the plane?
Yeah, I watched it on the plane. It was rubbish.
Okay, I probably told you that about you going to see it. Yeah, that's out on 4K and on Blu-ray. We've also got If Beale Street Could Talk, which was heavily Oscar nominated earlier in the year from the director of Moonlight. That's out on Blu-ray. Under Fire, Nick Nolte movie about journalists from the 80s, I think. I say Eureka disc, that's out on Blu-ray. Holy Mountain, which is, I'm pretty sure that's what's his face, the guy that was going to make Dune. His name escapes me right now. Jodorowsky. I think it's Jodorowsky. I think it's bonkers, as all of his films are. That's available on Blu-ray from Eureka. The Ascender, I don't know that one. It's on Arrow. The Running Man, which I think, if I'm correct, this is going to be the Stephen King Richard Bachman book. He wrote under the name Richard Bachman, but it was Stephen King. Arnold Schwarzenegger vehicle.
I love that film. I absolutely adore it. I like the way it's now set in the past as well. That cheers me up.
Yeah, although if you watch the film, it feels quite prescient in many ways.
Oh no, many of the things were surprisingly on the nose.
It's become true. The ARS, which won the competition prizes, I don't know a little about, to be honest, and also Vanishing Point.
It's a great bad film. Let's be clear.
Hopefully that's the original version and not the remake, but that's one. With basically a guy, Kowalski, driving around in his what's he driving in it?
Dodge Charger.
Yeah, Dodge Charger.
Sorry, a white Dodge Challenger. Someone will pick this up if I don't correct myself.
White
there.
Dodge Challenger, and he drives around being chased by the cops. It's basically an existential road movie with a very bizarre ending.
Yeah,
it also features for people of you like your car chases realistic bent, one of the most infuriating moments of cinematography going, where he is racing a Jaguar E-Type and they're going flat out neck and neck, and he inexplicably changes down, and instead of the engine simply vacating via the bonnet, inexplicably the car goes faster. It's one of the first instances of Americans really not understanding how manual transmissions work. So Steve McQueen makes 28 upshifts in Bullet and no downshifts, and the Fast and the Furious, as you know, is just random stomping.
Has nothing to do with reality whatsoever.
Nothing whatsoever. But it's and the other thing is they claim it's a supercharged Dodge Challenger, and it's abundantly clear that car has never been anywhere near a supercharger in its entire existence. The only thing that is quite interesting is that it was white because that was the Dodge Challenger that they could find at the time. And white stock Dodge Challengers are, I was about to use the phrase vanishingly, which would have been a poor and shite pun. They are extraordinarily rare. Now, of course, you can't move for them because people make Vanishing Point tribute cars.
Yeah.
But actual stock, factory-delivered white Dodge Challengers, you can count them on the fingers of one knee. And as Steve alludes to, the ending for this one isn't great. So, yeah, there you go.
But it is a bit of a minor classic.
Yes.
And
what was the whole thing with the DJ in it? I never understood the DJ thing.
That was a bit peculiar, but he starts giving the bloke messages.
Yeah, over the car radio, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there is a Primal Scream album.
I was going to say,
which is quite good.
And the song, Kowalski, one of the songs on it's called Kowalski, isn't it?
Yeah.
I don't know if the entire album is meant to be inspired by the film, but certainly that song is. So there you go. Yeah, it's a classic. And it's Barry... what's his name? The guy who used to play... he was in... Banachek?
Barry from EastEnders?
I've only had Barry from EastEnders.
That would be brilliant. Mighty. Maybe it's time to petition for a remake.
Yeah.
It's shot in England, and he's driving a white Capri.
Barry
around the Slough retail park.
they should cast it entirely with people who've previously been in EastEnders. That would be yeah.
Hello, Oscars.
Barry Newman was the guy I'm thinking of. He was Kowalski in the film, and also famously played Petrocelli. Yeah, that's who he played. Petrocelli. Was he the one that was building a house the whole time?
Yeah,
living in a caravan,
building
his own house, and never played a brick in 3 seasons. Anyway, I think we're going off tangent.
Yeah. If people listening in are wondering why Steve's trying to guess what the films are, basically it's a list that Kaz has provided of the discs coming out this week, and he doesn't give us any other details other than the title.
Unless I happen to have heard of that film, it's a bit vague.
This is what happens.
Apparently nothing on streaming. Although I will say, although nothing is coming out at the end of this week on streaming, if you haven't seen it, Good Omens is worth checking out. And Jessica Jones season 3 has just landed on Netflix, as has Killing Eve season 2 on BBC iPlayer. So
what's the Nicholas Winding reference thing on?
There's that thing too.
Yeah.
What?
I gave up on him a long time ago, to be honest.
Amazon Prime. He's done a series on Amazon Prime, which is it's getting quite a decent bit of buzz about it. I thought.
What is?
Nicholas Winding reference.
The geezer who did Drive.
Basically.
All right.
It's done an Amazon series. yeah, there's no shortage of stuff. Oh, and if you haven't watched it, it's on iPlayer, and the last 2 episodes are the day we're recording this, but What We Do in the Shadows has been absolutely brilliant. There's a new series too on Channel 4 called Year of the Rabbit, also with Matt Berry from What We Do in the Shadows. It's really funny, where he plays a Victorian copper. That is actually worth checking out too.
I have to say, I'm also quite looking forward to this Catch-22 on
Yeah,
Channel
that
4
starts this
as
week.
well. That looks very promising. I am recording Top Gear as we speak.
I am avoiding Top Gear.
I'm going to.
Give it one go. Come on, just check it out.
Yeah, I'm going to give it a whirl. What's the worst that could happen? Well, actually,
Okay, so if we watch it and then we can rip it to bits next week, then
well, I don't, look. Here's the thing. We're now at a point where if you want someone talking about the firing sequence of, you know, a Cosworth YB, you go to YouTube. It's done. Because of the specialist nature of it, it's so anything to do with cars on mainstream television, and actually now even streaming services, has to be light entertainment. If you want nuts and bolts, it's on YouTube. If you want something else, well, it has to be something else if it's going to be done in a different audience. I will say that I think we're all supposed to greatly dislike Paddy McGuinness, but I don't. I on occasions I find there is a level of self-deprecation to what
I really liked him in Max and Paddy.
Max and Paddy.
I really liked him in that, and I liked him in Phoenix Nights. I've got to say, as a doorman, but that's a bit as far as it goes for me.
Well, I'm going to give it a whirl.
I've never seen him in, to be honest. So
what's the worst that can happen? Well, that's not a sensible question to ask.
I will also just mention that season, I think it's 6 or maybe 7 of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is now on E4 if you're interested in that.
And Chernobyl starts disappearing from Now TV on the 4th of July.
Yes, it does. So if you haven't seen that, for God's sake, get in quick. And
I'm
also,
watching
Ed,
it tonight.
One for you, Ed. All of Elementary is now back on Now TV if you want to get stuck into that.
Unfortunately, thank you very much to the person who pointed out that there is now an unlimited contract on my 4G router. Unfortunately, it requires me to sign up for 12 months, and this is going to be the most childishly optimistic thing I say all year. I genuinely believe I'm not going to be in this place for that much longer, and I will revert back to a conventional cable broadband system. But thank you for bringing it to my attention. If you are listening to this and you have been plagued by slow broadband speed, Steve, and there is 4G available, I don't understand why you now would not make an immediate beeline.
I am actually in the process of arranging that.
Because
it was only a question of what the limit was in terms of how much data you could do a month, because I pile through it like it's going out of fashion.
Yeah.
So for me, it has to be a massive, either unlimited or a massive limit.
Well, they are claiming unlimited, and as I have to say, this is for people out in the sticks. That is a game-changing
this is
deal.
EE, right?
That you with this one's with mine's 3 is that this is happening. But and I have to say, the performance where I am with 3, it has been absolutely stonking. There has never been an issue with speed with 4K and HDR. It's always just been the download cap. So even 100 gigs a month, it sounds extensive. I can assure you it really isn't.
And anything that allows Steve to talk on a podcast where I don't have to then edit his words together because he breaks up in the middle is fantastic. So if it is unlimited and it solves that problem.
Well, yeah. I mean, just to remind you, you are listening. If you are listening to this podcast, you are listening to me on 4G, and you have been for the last 13 months.
Ed Selley, powered by 4G.
Exactly.
Yes. Anyway, thank you, Ed. I am in the process of sorting that out.
Because, as I say, if you're waiting for your wide infrastructure to improve, you're at the mercy of.
There's no point actually, because I can literally see the tower where the transmitters are for the various networks. So yeah. I mean, I will get I tested it just off my phone, and I was getting 40. So I think with an actual aerial on the roof pointing straight at the tower, you'll probably get more than that.
It's maybe too much.
Are you saying
you might get in a feedback loop?
Well, be that as it may, but nonetheless, thank you very much for bringing that to my attention. I'm childishly going to keep going on my limited bandwidth for the foreseeable future, because I want to leave this place. Besides, I've got 21 days remaining, and I've got 82. Well, obviously, that was before I started this podcast.
Make it sound like you're going to top yourself. I want to leave this place. I won't last another 12 months.
Yeah.
I
I've
tell you
recorded
what,
this, by the way, as well, so it is
I'll
now...
tell you what, I am out of here before the winter starts again, because the winter in this place was not fun. 21 days remaining, 81 gig, 709 megs remaining. So I've got loads, actually. So I might actually start piling through some elementaries.
And on that bombshell, that's it this week. That's all we've got time for. That's all we've got time to sit here and listen to. And my thanks to Ed Selley.
You'll get used to it, or you'll have a psychotic episode.
Steve Withers.
NYPD means I will knock your punk ass down.
And Mark Botwright.
Same thing, except no Nazis.
That should be every podcast, right? Same thing, no Nazis.
Yeah, unfortunately, we didn't get to do the best films set in New York. I thought that was a good subject.
Oh, yeah, but I was thinking about it beforehand, thinking I could think of a lot.
Yeah, we might have to do that next
when
week.
was the last time we ever made it to the bonus topic at the end?
Yeah.
You know, one of these days, if we do one of these things for charity and I don't know, talk for an entire day or something, and I don't suggest that Phil edits that. We'll just live stream it, and people will have to sign a waiver that whatever we say. Yeah, that would be fine. But unless we did something preposterous like that, there is no chance we would ever make it to the end topic.
Just imagine the backlog at the Samaritans if we did that.
Yeah,
They called it Black Monday.
We'll be part of a history question. Name the origins of World War III.
The day the Earth stood still, or the day the Earth caught fire. One or the other is probably.
Anyway, don't forget to follow us on Twitter and Facebook, bookmark AVForums.com for latest reviews, news and videos. Plus, why not leave us a 5-star rating on iTunes, but only if you enjoyed the show. Also, head over and check out our YouTube channel for videos on the latest product releases and reviews. And while you're there, feel free to subscribe. I'm Phil Hinton. Thank you very much for listening, and we'll see you again next week.